What if Xal'atath doesn't serve the Void Lords? If you listen to Xal'atath, she doesn't want to destroy us. She wants to harness our rage. She wants to make us part of her solution, of her army. What if Xal'atath herself is actually busy with a much greater game, a much greater plan? And it's not a plan that involves the old gods or the void lords. It's a plan that she has hatched on her own in order to circumvent the void, but also save the mortals. Oh, was it? Your fury will be mine? Yes, that's exactly her words. Your fury will be mine. That's my tinfoil theory. I think it's more likely Zal is against the Titans than she is fully aligned with the Void Lords. While she does have a history of ditching people when they're no longer useful. So the main question here, and the main reason I say this, is because Xal'atath, the origins of Xal'atath is highly problematic. Highly problematic. We don't know where Xal'atath comes from. We know that Xal'atath wasn't always a blade. How do we know this? Well, sort of by extrapolating a bunch of things. The main extrapolation, of course, being if Xal'atath leaving the blade could become mortal, or at least immortal, but, inhabit a body, then this means that before Xal'atath was a blade, she should have been some kind of soul. So clearly Xal'atath has some kind of soul, either a thing mimicking a soul or an actual soul. But Xal'atath did have a time before the blade. The next bit of evidence that we have for this is Xal'atath saying they will pay for what was done to me a year or so long ago when you go to Orgrimmar. We've spoken about this many, many times before, but in this instance, it is pertinent to mention at least, suggesting that something happened to Xal'atath. We also know that the blade has been around for a super, super long time, right? Basically, the blade has been around since before the fall and the Second Sundering. So there's clearly, there's a lot of evidence about Xal'atath the Blade. There is no evidence about Xal'atath the Mortal. But then someone in my community, Saven Raven, came up with a theory. She literally just mentioned this to me. What if Xal'atath is Elune, or at least a part of Elune? So what if Elune is the one that was split, and part of Elune was placed inside a blade, and the other part of Elune was locked inside either the moon of Azeroth, or has been forced to sort of exist without a body, exist without a presence? Perhaps that is why we've never seen Elune before, because Elune can't actually manifest into a body as a result of being split, right? As a result, it is possible that Xal'atath is literally the blue child that the ancient stories refer to, or the folk tales refer to. So Xal'atath is the blue child, but the blue child isn't so much the concept of Xal'atath being the child of Elune, but rather as Xal'atath or as Elune was either betrayed by the Titans, because we know the Titans like doing that. Aman'Thul has some wild and weird crap that he likes to pull. So I would not be. So here's the thing. Now we have to go back all the way to Legion. In Legion, I showed that the architecture and the design of the Blade of Xal'atath is ridiculously similar to Titan-constructed weapons. In fact, it looks almost identical to the weapons of Sargeras, and Sargeras uses Titan Forging. And I'm not talking about Titan Forging, the one where your gear goes up, you don't have to have a fucking panic attack. I'm talking about Titan Forging as in the Titan method of forging weapons. They look as if they may have come from exactly the same blacksmith, to be quite frank. What if Aman'Thul, in another weird attempt at control, actually took Elune, because we know that Aman'Thul trusts no one. And we also know that Elune, at least from the stories that we've heard, would come from the Shadowlands. This means that Aman'Thul would probably not know who Elune is. So coming across Elune, he did not like the fact that she was powerful. He did not like the fact that she was free. And so Aman'Thul devised this new plan. He would chain Elune into the blade, but not all of her, only a part of her. We know that Morn Blades do have this ability to split souls, and since Xal'atath really operates like a Morn Blade, it is entirely possible that Xal'atath is an opposite side of Elune. The reason I like this theory is the imagery of Xal'atath. If you guys remember, when we saw the very first cinematic with Xal'atath, I started going on about Elune and Xal'atath and the similarities between Elune and Xal'atath. So if you look at Xal'atath, for example, you look on her cheek and just between her eyes, you have the crescent moon, a symbol very much related to the Night Elves and Elune's worship. I believe, actually, that exact symbol can be found on Tyrande. I'd have to go and check that, to be fair. But I think you can find that exact rune on Tyrande. The half-crescent moon, or the crescent moon, rather. Xal'atath has this on her cheek, as well as between her eyes. Right here. She has the crescent moon. Her eyes look like either a solar or a lunar eclipse. I should probably show you guys this, just in case. I mean, I don't know why I'm expecting you to use your imagination. I do apologize. I just remembered, wait, I have the power of Google and YouTube. I could show you guys this. I don't need you to imagine it. Like, this is not the fucking 1500s, so I do apologize for this. And we can go with this one. Okay, I don't want all of this. I really just want... All right, look at her eyes here, okay? If you look closely, I think there's a point where they zoom in a little bit on her eyes. Like, look at that. Does that not look like either a solar or a lunar eclipse? Now, don't think about the color, because I know a lot of people immediately went, no, it can't be a lunar eclipse because that would be red. That depends on a great many things, right? If you look at her eyes, this is an eclipse of some kind. Now, a solar eclipse, moon moving in front of the sun. Lunar eclipse, Earth moving between the sun and the moon. In both cases, the moon is present within that equation. So it doesn't really matter whether this is a solar or lunar eclipse. It's the fact is the moon is involved in this. Then, of course, as I said, take a look at her cheek, right? Take a look at her cheek. Take a look at this. So you look at her cheek over here, the crescent moon. Look right between her eyes, the crescent moon over there. Why is Elune so heavily imaged in Xal'atath's cinematics? Dying Angel, how you doing? Nick, how you doing? Anti-Product, how you doing, bro? Katie, how you doing? Ginger Nuts, how you doing? Midnight and focused on the owls, very likely to be Elune focus, right? Yeah, well, obviously. There's been a giant build-up of Elune for a while now, right? We've had Elune basically not front and center, but present since end of Legion, really. Actually, in Legion, fuck, what am I talking about? Val'Sharah is like super Elune focused. So since Legion, really, Elune has been playing an increasingly more important role within the story. And in Dragonflight, really, we came very close to Elune taking front and center, but really in Shadowlands, Elune played quite a large central theme of the expansion. So it is entirely possible that this is Blizzard building up to it. Doing pretty good, man. Did you happen to see my theory about Sargeras, Aenar, Zal, and Elune? Katie, I've no idea. I've seen hundreds of theories the last few months. Every single one of my videos, there's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 theories. Everyone has a different one. So I like reading all of them, but if you're asking me to remember a specific one, there's no fucking shot. I won't be able to do that. I have a pretty decent memory, but not that good. Not if you're such a narcissist that it's always everyone else's fault. What do you mean, Brittle J? What if Sargeras actually killed Aenar on the seat of the Pantheon and split her soul with the sword? Elune half and Xal'atath is the other. The problem just there is, why would the Titans leave that out? I mean, they told us about Sargeras killing Agramar. They told us about Sargeras cleaving a planet in half. Why would they not tell us about... No, that's not possible. For a second there, I was like, wait. A planet with a nascent Titan soul was cleaved in half. Where do the Titan souls go upon death? We now know that they also go to the Shadowlands. If servants and beings of life go to Ardenweald in order to be reborn, is it not possible that Elune herself would also be in Ardenweald to be reborn after Sargeras cleaved her planet in half? This is why the Winter Queen refers to Elune as sister, because when Elune arrived in Ardenweald, she immediately realized that, oh shit, Elune is actually like me. She is also a titanic being. She was born inside a planet, and this is how they know each other. So not technically sister, but kind of sister. Not if she was split and sent elsewhere. The problem is that now we're starting to get into some very difficult sort of properties, right? Because if we're saying, well, actually she could have been killed and then sent elsewhere, the problem that you would run into there is, okay, so wait a second. Is every single being that lives inside a planet now going to a completely different fucking place? What's the logic? There has to be a logical conclusion to something, right? I need to be able to logically say these are the rules. If a nascent world soul dies, it goes there, right? Unless there's fuckery about. Now, in the instance of Argus, we know that fuckery was about, right? There was a bunch of fuckery. But I don't think the fuckery was to ensure that he would go to a place that he don't normally go to. I think the fuckery was that when he does go there, he would do something completely different. That's what I think the fuckery was about. A lot of Berkham's hints, etc., that can lead us in quite a few directions. True. Exactly. It's hard to build and explain on a theory in YouTube chat, but that's my exact thinking, just working there faster than me. No, that's perfectly fine, bro. I don't know how I feel about it, because, I mean, we've never had an answer to what happened to the world soul that got cleaved in half, right? And the reason I don't know if that world soul actually dies is because when Agramar got cleaved in half, Agramar didn't die. His body got destroyed, but his soul was fine. We know because Agramar is alive right now. When Sargeras killed all of the other Titans, they didn't die either. Remember, a spell was cast in order to stop them from going back to the source, but not necessarily from dying forever. Based on everything that we've come to understand, especially during the Shadowlands, these souls are technically indestructible. Upon death, they will simply return to the source and be born again. Unless, of course, you stop it personally from happening, but the fact that we see multiple versions of the Eternal Ones and their bodies inside Zereth Mortis suggests that their souls are indestructible, as it were. With August soul from the planet to their ship. Be a lot of fuckery afoot, mate. Jonan, you're telling me the Winter Queen also called Ysera her sister's pet? Yes, but again, when you say sister, it's important to understand that sister does not have to mean sibling. It can mean sibling, of course, but it can also just be sister as in same, right? So we shared the same space for a very long time, and therefore we are sisters. Now, if that is the case, and Sargeras did indeed split Xal'atath, or split Elune in two when he cleaved that planet in half, and part of Elune went to the Shadowlands, the other part of Elune made its way to Azeroth, and it became Xal'atath. So, Barmot, I said the same thing, but I'm pretty sure in an interview, it was Steve the Newser that confirmed that no, Titan souls still go to the Shadowlands. It's from the Shadowlands that they get sent to their respective places. So the Shadowlands, when they go into Oribos, that's where the soul of a Titan would be sent to the Realms of Order. Suggesting, by the way, that these realms are indeed, as we have speculated in the past, they are indeed connected to each other. So the Titans and other godlike beings use the Shadowlands and Anima for mortals to be a rebirthing tool. Well, it would make sense, since based on what I think about the Shadowlands, it looks like we are consistently being used. Brittle J, that's exactly my thinking. Xal'atath would be the dark side of the moon. She is the counterweight to Elune, because she and Elune isn't the same. And what's interesting is she makes reference of Elune, right? In her whisper. Upstart goddess. Which sounds non-threatening, but also a little like, insulting, right? Yeah. What if she's not the moon? We're going to the Sunwell again at some point in the coming expansions. Okay, but Vengeance, what do you mean? What if she's not the moon, though? The Shadowlands really make stuff more confusing, because if a Titan can end up there, so would an old god. Obama, don't get me started. I've said before, the biggest mistake the Shadowlands made was to give us a peek behind the curtain. Death is the one thing in almost every story that you should try not to fuck with, unless you absolutely have a plan, because you end up making death trivial, which I feel like for a lot of people, death has been made trivial in World of Warcraft because of what the Shadowlands represented. But then it also just creates a shit ton of confusion. Because, okay, wait, but so now they're going to the Shadowlands, but are they really going to the Shadowlands, or are they going somewhere else? How does any of this actually operate and work? You could make the argument that one of the reasons you had the Void invading Bastion is because even the old gods go through Oribos in order to go back to the Void, right? And one old god managed to make it through and actually go to Bastion rather than go to the Void. It's like, it's a mess. We have to operate within this mess, but it is a mess. I fully agree with you there. What if it's solar and not lunar eclipse in our eyes? Vengeance, I've already explained for that. It doesn't matter, because ultimately the moon is involved in both of those processes, and so it doesn't matter. The moon is still involved. Now, if you are focusing on the sun, that puts us in a much more precarious position, right? Because the issue with the sun is that, yes, the Tauren believe in the sun being an actual being, the same as Elune, basically, right? Or what they call Musha, what is Elune. They believe in Anshe being an actual being. But from my understanding, it's interesting that almost no other race on Azeroth share that belief, at least from what I know. Now, I could be misremembering certain things, But if I'm not mistaken, it's only the Tauren that believe in Anshe, that believe that there is a being of the light. No? Zal calls the player the opener, bringer of truth, and the torch of the torch to light the way. Was she manipulating the manipulator N'Zoth by making him believe we would free him? But in truth, we would one day be freeing Azeroth? What is Xal'atath's fate? So, Ryan, I don't think that she was trying to manipulate N'Zoth. I think N'Zoth was always supposed to die. I don't think N'Zoth ever really cared about living. I don't think any of the old gods ever cared about living. Because I think fundamentally, from their perspective, so it's important to understand that the old gods are fragments of the Void Lords. So this means that N'Zoth isn't actually a being in his own right. N'Zoth exists because of a greater being called the Void Lord. So for N'Zoth, the only reason for his existence is to bring about the Void Lord, right? That he belongs to. So I think that they were always meant to die. This wasn't just like this wasn't an accident. I think death was always the plan because Xal'atath, the Harbinger, was always supposed to use their essence in order to open the way for the old god, for the Void Lords to come through. So that's my theory, at least, on it. I hope that answers it. The Tauren believe in Musha and Anshe, Sun and Moon. I don't know which is which. So Musha is the moon, Elune, basically. The argument is pretty well established that Musha and Elune is the same thing. Right? Even the Tauren, I believe, don't dispute that. It's just different words for the same thing. Anshe, on the other hand, I don't believe the Night Elves have the same version of Anshe. Being the moon is that we know from the story of the Night Warrior that Elune isn't specifically contained in our universe. We see other Night Warriors from other dimensions. Yeah, but it doesn't have to... that does not have to matter specifically because from the other dimensions, Elune would also exist. Because the Titans exist in the other dimensions as well. So if Elune is indeed a being born inside a planet, then Elune would exist in all of the other universes or all of the other dimensions as well. She would be a planet in all of those dimensions as well. This is, by the way, also a problem with time travel and different dimensions. It starts to create a very weird way of trying to tell a story. So, Elon, from your grasp of things, in terms of her relationship with Azeroth, is Xal'atath a misunderstood hero, kind of like Illidan? Or kind of like Queen Azshara, and will do whatever it takes to gain power? I think somewhere in between those two. I'm also not, by the way, convinced that Queen Azshara is a villain. I don't think Queen Azshara is looking for power's sake. I think Queen Azshara is looking for power for something very specific. Someone mentioned this to me. The similarities between Azshara and the shit that the elves were pulling with the Well of Eternity and the events of Koresh are striking. No? I think it was Apocalypse, actually, that mentioned this to me. If Sargeras did not disrupt and destroy the Well of Eternity, Azshara and her followers would absolutely have summoned a Void Lord into our reality. Against their will, but they would have done so. Because if you think about it, the Well of Eternity is considered to be a font of arcane power. Azshara and her followers were basically seeking ways to increase the magical capacity of the Well of Eternity. So create even more arcane power within the Well of Eternity because they were drawing from this font of power in order to do their magic. Go back to Koresh. What happened on Koresh? What is the actual lore of Koresh? The Ethereals, or what they were known as before they became Ethereals, I don't actually know, but the Ethereals were fucking around with arcane. In fact, they were so powerful in the arcane that their cities had arcane shields around it. And it was this arcane that drew Dimensius to their planet, to attack their planet and ultimately destroy their planet. So, in a way, if Azshara wasn't stopped by Sargeras, they would have summoned someone through. So now you start to ask the question, what if Sargeras did this on purpose?